In the heart of the Middle East lies a nation shaped by empires, revolution, and resilience. A land where ancient kings once ruled vast territories and where the echoes of history still linger in stone, language, and tradition. Iran is not a recent creation of modern borders or political agreements. It is the continuation of one of the oldest civilizations the world has ever known. From the vast deserts to the snow-capped mountains, from ancient ruins to modern skylines, the story of Iran stretches across millennia. It is a story written in conquest and survival, in poetry and philosophy, in struggle and endurance. Iran's identity begins long before the modern world took shape, in the time when it was known as Persia. The Persian Empire, under Cyrus the Great, rose to become one of the most powerful civilizations in history. At its height, it stretched across vast regions, from the banks of the Indus River in the east to the Mediterranean in the west. But its true legacy was not only its size, it was its ideas. Cyrus is remembered not just as a conqueror, but as a ruler who introduced principles of governance that emphasized tolerance and respect for diverse cultures and religions. These early ideas would echo across centuries, influencing how later societies thought about leadership, law, and human dignity. Yet, like all great empires, Persia faced decline and transformation. It was invaded and reshaped by waves of foreign powers. The armies of Alexander the Great swept through its cities. Centuries later, Arab conquest brought profound cultural and religious change. The Mongol invasions left destruction across the land. Each era left its mark, but none erased what Persia had become. Instead, Iran absorbed these influences, reshaped them, and emerged with a renewed identity. It was never simply conquered, it evolved. Through the rise and fall of empires through war and peace, Iran remained a civilization anchored in continuity. Even as dynasties changed, even as borders shifted, the cultural core remained intact. Language, literature, art, and identity survived every disruption. And then, in the modern era, a new turning point arrived that would redefine Iran's place in the world. In 1979, the Iranian Revolution transformed the country entirely. The monarchy was overthrown and the Islamic Republic was born. It was not just a political shift, but a seismic transformation of society, governance, and international relations. The revolution reshaped Iran's relationship with the world, especially with the United States. What followed was a long period of tension, mistrust, and confrontation. The Iran hostage crisis soon after the revolution marked the beginning of decades of hostility that would define global geopolitics in the region.
At the same time, Iran is not frozen in its past. It is a country of modern universities, scientific research, and technological ambition. Its population is young, with a large portion of citizens under the age of 30. They are educated, digitally connected, and aware of the world beyond their borders. In cities like Tehran, life moves with the rhythm of modern urban existence. Cafes, universities, traffic, markets, and digital screens all blending into a complex contemporary society. Yet this modernity exists within a system shaped by religious governance and strict political structures. This duality defines much of Iran's present reality. A population that is globally connected, living within a framework of internal control and external pressure. Economic sanctions, political isolation, and financial restrictions have created significant challenges for everyday life. Prices fluctuate, opportunities shift, and uncertainty is a constant presence. And yet, despite these pressures, life continues. Markets remain active, families gather, students study, and culture persists. Iran does not stand still. It adapts. To understand Iran's global significance, however, one must move beyond its cities and history and look toward the sea. At the southern edge of the country lies a narrow but strategically vital passage known as the Strait of Hormuz. At its narrowest point, this waterway is only about 21 miles wide. It appears small on a map, almost insignificant in scale, but its importance is immense. Through this narrow corridor flows a critical portion of the world's energy supply. Nearly 1/5 of global oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz, carried by massive tankers traveling from the oil-rich nations of the Middle East to markets across Asia, Europe, and North America. Every day these ships move along a route that quietly sustains the modern global economy. The fuel that powers industries, transports goods, and heats homes often begins its journey here, in this confined stretch of water. Because of this, the Strait of Hormuz is not just a geographic feature, it is a lifeline. If it is disrupted, the effects are immediate and global. Oil prices rise sharply, supply chains slow down, transportation costs increase, electricity and food prices follow. Even countries far removed from the Middle East feel the consequences of instability in this narrow passage. In a globalized world, distance offers no protection from disruption. Iran's geographic position places it directly adjacent to this critical waterway. This proximity gives it a unique form of strategic influence. It does not need to fully control the strait to affect it. The possibility of disruption alone can alter global behavior. Shipping companies adjust routes. Insurance costs rise. Naval forces increase their presence. In moments of tension, uncertainty becomes as powerful as action itself. In early 2026, this fragile balance escalated into open conflict. The United States, alongside Israel, launched large-scale strikes targeting military infrastructure within Iran, including missile systems and strategic facilities. In response, Iran retaliated with missile and drone operations across the region, expanding the scope of the confrontation. But beyond the battlefield exchanges, a more significant shift occurred. Attention turned decisively toward the Strait of Hormuz. Shipping activity through the waterway began to decline. Some vessels slowed or rerouted, while others avoided the region entirely. Reports of disruption spread quickly. The global economy reacted almost instantly. Flights were cancelled or adjusted. Trade routes were redrawn. Energy markets experienced sharp volatility. What had once been a stable artery of global commerce became a zone of uncertainty. As the disruption continued, analysts reported a noticeable decline in shipping traffic through the strait, raising concerns about long-term impacts on global oil supply. Markets responded with instability, reflecting how deeply interconnected the world had become with this narrow passage of water. In this environment, Iran demonstrated a central strategic reality. While it may not possess the capacity to defeat a superpower in direct military confrontation, it can exert significant pressure on the global system through economic leverage. The consequences of such a conflict extend far beyond the region itself. This is not a war contained within borders. It is a conflict that touches global markets, energy systems, and political alliances across continents. When oil prices rise, inflation follows. Transportation costs increase, food becomes more expensive, economic pressure spreads from one region to another, affecting households and governments alike. As tensions rise, so too does the risk of broader escalation. More nations may become involved, either directly or indirectly. Regional conflicts can expand beyond their original boundaries. Alliances may be tested. Global power dynamics may shift in ways that are difficult to predict. What begins as a regional confrontation can evolve into a much larger and more complex international crisis. In this context, some analysts argue that the Strait of Hormuz is not merely a strategic location, but the central point of leverage in the entire conflict. Control, influence, or even disruption of this narrow passage carries implications that extend far beyond regional politics. It becomes a factor capable of shaping global outcomes. And so, when viewed from above, from the perspective of geography and global systems, the story of Iran is not only about a nation, its history, or its politics. It is also about position. It is about how location can shape destiny in a world dependent on energy and trade. Iran stands at a crossroads of continents, ideologies, and economies. In its final reflection, the truth becomes clear. Iran is a nation of ancient roots and modern challenges, shaped by history, driven by identity, and positioned at the crossroads of global power. And in a narrow stretch of water just miles wide, the fate of the world economy may hang in the balance. Because sometimes the most important place on earth is not a country, but a passage.